Somewhere in Encinitas, California, past the eucalyptus trees and ocean breeze, there's a quiet 4-acre ranch that doesn't scream for attention, but whispers stories if you listen closely. Here, a man once famous for wild solos and wilder nights now spends his mornings with horses and sunsets with guitars. Yes, this is the unexpected home of rock legend Joe Walsh. Today we're stepping through his gate, not just to see a house, but to discover the freedom he finally found. What happens when a young boy who loses his father to a tragic plane crash finds a guitar at the age of 10? Does the grief turn to silence, or does it become sound? For Joe Walsh, it became distortion, rhythm, and riffs. Born in Wichita, Kansas in 1947, raised by a classically trained pianist mother, and adopted by a stepfather who served in the Air Force, Joe was no stranger to movement, loss, and reinvention. His earliest music education came from listening, deeply. Not in music schools, but in the stillness between changes. By the time he was 12, the family had relocated to Montclair, New Jersey, where Joe learned to play the oboe in the school band. But it wasn't woodwinds that would define him, it was 6 steel strings. And in the mid-1960s, when America was spinning in protest and psychedelic experimentation, Joe found his first calling, a bar band named The Measles. Ironically fitting because their sound, raw, infectious, and unfiltered, was about to spread. But the world would only really hear Joe Walsh when he joined the James Gang in 1968. It wasn't meant to be a headline moment. He had simply knocked on drummer Jim Foxx's door, asking to audition after the previous guitarist had quit. But when Joe plugged in, something shifted. His style, part bluesy, part reckless, all original, changed the band's chemistry overnight. Suddenly, the James Gang wasn't just another Midwest outfit. They were opening for Cream in Detroit, catching the attention of Pete Townsend from The Who, and securing record deals that put their songs on movie soundtracks and radios nationwide. Funk number 49, Walk Away. The gritty, infectious guitar work wasn't just technically impressive, it had attitude, and the world took notice. But Joe wasn't satisfied. Success somehow felt limited. So, in 1971, he left the James Gang behind, not out of rebellion, but out of a restless need to explore new terrain. He moved to Colorado, started a band called Barnstorm, and began experimenting. Not just with guitar tones, but with identity. Synths, pedal steel, slide, keyboards, talk boxes. He wasn't chasing fame anymore. He was chasing sound. Then came the breakthrough. In 1973, his solo track, Rocky Mountain Way, exploded, equal parts anthem and autobiography. It wasn't just a song. It was a declaration. I'm doing fine, it's Independence Day. A man had been set free. But the real turning point arrived in 1975, when he was invited to join a band that had already made their mark on American rock, the Eagles. Some were skeptical. Could Joe's chaotic energy truly blend with the band's smooth harmonies and California polish? The answer came in 1976, Hotel California. Joe didn't just blend, he cut through, adding muscle and bite to a sound that was ready to evolve. His guitar duel with Don Felder on the title track became an instant classic, seared into the DNA of rock history. And then there was Life in the Fast Lane. The riff? Joe's. The lifestyle it mocked? Also Joe's. He had become the ultimate paradox, a rebel with discipline, a technician with soul, a wild man with precision. But as the Eagles soared through global tours and platinum albums, another truth was quietly emerging beneath the surface. Joe Walsh was tired. Tired of airports. Tired of excess. Tired of being on all the time. The fame had been earned. The fortune was piling up. But what do you do when the noise gets louder than the music? Some burn out. Some break down. Joe, He began to step back. The seeds of a different life, a life with dirt under the fingernails, guitars resting against barn walls, and sunrises instead of stadium lights, were already being planted. He didn't know it then, but the very spirit that fueled his rise, the refusal to conform, was about to lead him to a new kind of freedom. One that didn't come with applause, one that smelled of horses and wood, one that waited quietly, on a ranch in Encinitas. Ranch in Encinitas, California. Tucked away behind whispering eucalyptus trees, just a stone's throw from the Pacific Ocean, lies a stretch of land where the wildness of rock meets the calm of earth. This isn't Beverly Hills. This isn't Malibu. This is Encinitas, California. And on this 4-acre ranch, Joe Walsh found the silence he never knew he needed. There's no neon sign at the entrance, no high-security gate with fingerprint scanners. Instead, just a simple wooden archway, hugged by green vines and flanked by tall sycamores. It opens not into opulence, but into openness. And that's the point. The moment you step foot on the property, it feels like the world softens. There's something about how the golden California light filters through the trees. Something about the way the breeze carries the faint scent of salt and hay. It doesn't feel curated. It feels honest. The house itself is a single-story California ranch-style home. Low-slung, grounded, wide like a chord strummed slow and deliberate. Its facade is a soft, sandy beige, blending into the surroundings rather than shouting above them. Large glass windows stretch across the walls like eyes that never want to miss the sunset. The roof, terracotta tiled, gives just a whisper of Spanish influence. But this isn't architecture built to impress. It's built to breathe. Inside, the floors are warm hardwood, smoothed by years of foot traffic and bare feet. High ceilings with exposed beams echo like open-air concert halls. But there's no stage here. Just space. Space for guitars, for laughter, for long, slow mornings with coffee and vinyl spinning in the background. The living room, a sprawling, sun-drenched space, is where the stories live. Guitars lean casually against old armchairs. A Leslie speaker cabinet sits in the corner, quietly collecting dust, as if still humming from a jam session days ago. On the walls, not platinum records or framed magazine covers, but personal photographs, oil paintings, and quiet reminders of people Joe's loved and lost. Connected to the living area is the open-concept kitchen, with butcher block countertops and a large island that doubles as a storytelling table. Friends come here often, fellow musicians, neighbors, sometimes just folks passing through. They sit, they eat, they talk about everything but the spotlight. Because here, fame is not the guest of honor. Stillness is. There are 6 bedrooms, each simple, airy, personal. But one stands out. The primary suite opens directly to the garden, where morning light spills in like a hush. This is where Joe wakes up, not to alarms, not to schedules, but to the sound of birds, and sometimes the gentle thud of horses pacing in the distance. Yes, horses. Because beyond the house, past the winding stone path and the soft green lawn, is a fully functional horse barn and running paddock. Joe, a man who once roamed the world in private jets and tour buses, now watches the slow gait of horses like poetry in motion. He doesn't ride often. He watches, and in watching he listens, to the earth, to the wind, to himself. Beside the paddock is a curved swimming pool, quiet and gleaming like a vinyl record under sunlight. There's also a spa, nestled between hedges, where steam swirls with the scent of eucalyptus. A basketball court sits near the back. Rumor has it Joe still shoots hoops some nights, just to shake off the day. But the real magic is in the in-between. The garden paths, narrow and winding, invite slow evening walks. The outdoor sitting area, lit by string lights and wrapped in the scent of rosemary and jasmine, often becomes an impromptu concert hall where Joe might pick up a guitar and play, not for the crowd, but for the wind. And perhaps that's what makes this place so different. It's not just a home, it's a retreat, a refuge, a cleansing of decades spent in the fast lane. This is where Joe healed, where he reconnected with the part of himself that didn't need applause to feel alive. Because on this ranch, music doesn't echo, it settles. And freedom isn't loud, it's quiet, steady, and deeply earned. So the next time you hear a guitar cry in Hotel California or laugh in Life's Been Good, remember, it may have been written in chaos, but it found peace, right here, where the ocean kisses the land and guitars rest beside horses. If the ranch in Encinitas is where Joe Walsh meets the earth, then this is where he returns to himself, to silence, to memory, to music in its rawest form. Mansion in Sherman Oaks. Tucked within the leafy neighborhoods of Sherman Oaks, California, far from the canyon parties of the 70s and just far enough from the noise of Sunset Boulevard, is a modest yet radiant ranch bungalow built in the late 1950s. It's not grand, it's not loud, but it feels like home. Purchased for around $3.5 million, this single-story residence offers just 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, and a lifestyle that blends retreat with rhythm. But the real magic? It begins the moment you walk through the front door. You're not greeted by chandeliers or golden staircases. You're greeted by light. Lots of it. Massive windows pull the sunshine inward, painting the warm wood floors in golden hues. The ceilings are high enough to breathe, but low enough to feel grounded, like a good guitar riff. The living space is open plan, where the living room, kitchen, and dining area bleed into one another like verses of the same song. There are no sharp corners, only flow. The walls are soft gray, adorned with minimalist artwork, and, naturally, vintage guitars hung like sacred relics. A worn-in leather couch faces a sleek record player setup. Nearby, a Stratocaster leans against an amp, as if waiting for the right moment to speak. And every so often, the silence breaks, not with noise, but with tone. Because here, Joe still plays. But not for audiences, for peace. The kitchen, though not massive, is crafted for intimacy. Dark marble countertops, a compact island with 2 stools, soft under-cabinet lighting that turns late-night conversations into sacred rituals. This is where Joe brews coffee in the early morning hours, where he and Marjorie Bach, his wife since 2008, exchange quiet looks over tea, where friends drop by unannounced and leave with more than they came for, not souvenirs, but stories. The primary bedroom is simple, soft, and deeply personal. Muted tones, cotton sheets, a guitar resting beside the bed, as though it, too, needs sleep. There's no clutter, just intention. Outside, things get even more sacred. The backyard unfolds like a private oasis. Palm trees sway in rhythm with the wind. A rectangular pool reflects the sky. And just beyond the hedge, there's a sun deck, perfect for lounging with a book, a Strat, or silence itself. At night, when the string lights come on and the water glimmers like glass, the space transforms. This isn't just a backyard, it's a stage for reflection, where Joe strums softly, eyes closed, not seeking perfection, but presence. And then there's the location. Sherman Oaks is often overlooked in the LA constellation. Not as glamorous as Beverly Hills, not as eccentric as Silver Lake, but maybe that's the point. Because Joe's not chasing paparazzi, he's chasing peace. From here, he can drive to a studio session in Hollywood in under 30 minutes. But he can also disappear completely by stepping out into his garden. In many ways, this home is a metaphor. Not for his fame, but for what comes after fame. A space where you can still hear echoes of the stadiums, but they don't define the rhythm of your day anymore. A space where music is no longer performance, it's medicine. And for Joe Walsh, who's lived through decades of chaos, creation, and recovery, this home isn't just an address. It's a reminder that healing doesn't always happen in silence. Sometimes it happens in soundproof walls, a perfectly tuned E string, and the quiet knowledge that you finally have nothing left to prove. But as peaceful as these walls are, and as soft as the morning light feels through the Sherman Oaks windows, there's something else quietly humming beneath it all. Something that doesn't glitter on the walls, yet built every inch of this sanctuary. Money. Not the kind that shouts with gold chains and champagne, but the kind that funds freedom, the kind that turns decades of chaos into calm. So how did Joe Walsh, wild, witty, wonderfully unpredictable, build a fortune that could buy both noise and stillness? The answer, like his riffs, is more layered than it seems. $75 million. That's the number. But for Joe Walsh, it was never about numbers. This is a man who once wrote, with tongue firmly in cheek, "I have a mansion. Forget the price. Ain't never been there. They tell me it's nice." And yet, behind the sarcasm of "life's been good" lies a deeper truth. Joe's fortune came not from chasing money, but from chasing meaning. And somehow, the money followed. His money flowed into guitars, quiet homes, and freedom. Sure, there were licensing deals, like the reimagined Rocky Mountain Elway for Monday Night Football in 1998, and occasional commercial partnerships. But Joe never became a brand. He remained simply Joe. And while some artists invest in tech startups or whiskey labels, Joe's greatest investment has always been in time. The time to create, to recover, to give back. Today, that $75 million fortune doesn't scream. It whispers. It's found in the studio speakers tucked into the corner of his bungalow, in the rescue horses on his Encinitas ranch, in the quiet vacations with Marjorie far from flashing lights, in the freedom to say no to the spotlight, to the pressure, to the noise. Because for Joe Walsh, wealth was never the destination. It was the byproduct of a life fully lived, of songs sung with soul, and of a man who figured out that peace is the most valuable thing money can't buy, unless you build it, 1 acre at a time. For a man who once wrote songs poking fun at fame and fortune, Joe Walsh always knew that real wealth lives elsewhere. And for him, it lives in giving back. Philanthropy. The story starts, not in a concert hall, but in service. You see, Joe's father, Lieutenant Robert Newton Fiddler, was a flight instructor in the U.S. Air Force. When Joe was just a baby, his father died in a tragic plane crash. He never got the chance to know the man. But the absence left a permanent echo in Joe's life, one that would eventually become a calling. In 2017, decades after the lights dimmed on the wildest days of rock, Joe launched something deeply personal. Vets Aid. More than just a concert. More than just a cause. Vets Aid is a mission, a nonprofit organization that raises funds for veterans and the families of fallen service members through annual benefit concerts. And Joe didn't just put his name on it. He put his heart into it. He handpicks the performers, inviting friends, old bandmates, rising artists, and even legends like Don Henley, Ringo Starr, and Keith Urban to take the stage. And he performs too, grinning, jamming, letting his music serve something greater than applause. In the very first Vets Aid concert, held in Fairfax, Virginia, the night raised over $360,000 for 16 grassroots veterans organizations. Every dollar, after minimal costs, went directly to those on the ground. Homeless veteran shelters, mental health programs, Gold Star family support, job placement centers. But it didn't stop there. Each year, Joe shifted the spotlight to a different state, focusing grant funding on local organizations that often go unseen. In 2025, for example, the focus turned to Kansas, his birth state, helping struggling families in small towns where patriotism runs deep, but resources run thin. And Joe doesn't just give money, he gives voice. He uses interviews, appearances, and even his music to highlight the unseen battles veterans fight, long after the war ends. PTSD, addiction, isolation, the things Joe himself has faced. And maybe that's what makes Vets Aid so authentic. It's not charity from a pedestal. It's solidarity from someone who's walked dark paths too. But Joe's compassion doesn't end with the military. He's quietly supported causes for civil liberties, disaster relief, music education, and mental health. He's performed for environmental fundraisers, donated guitars to music therapy programs, and sat in on panels about the importance of creative healing. No press, no big check presentations, just action. Because at this stage in life, impact means more than impressions. And maybe that's why his philanthropy feels different. It's not a side project. It's the second act of a life once lived in overdrive. Joe knows what it's like to fall apart, to lose people, to face silence that's louder than applause. And he knows how music, real, human, trembling music, can save someone. So now, he offers that music to others, not to sell records, but to save lives. And if you ask Joe why he does it, he won't talk about tax deductions. He'll talk about his dad, about the people who never got to come home, and about the veterans still waiting to be seen, heard, and held. This is the sound of Joe Walsh today. Not the thunder of amps, but the steady hum of compassion in motion. In the end, the stage lights always fade. The cheering stops. The money, the legacy, the causes, they live on, yes. But what remains when all of that goes quiet? What's left is the man. And for Joe Walsh, that's a story even more raw, more human, and more beautiful than any song he's ever written. Personal life. There's a certain kind of silence that only comes after surviving chaos. Joe Walsh knows that silence well. He's lived through its every shade: grief, addiction, heartbreak, redemption. And somehow, through it all, he found a way not just to endure, but to listen. His personal life has never been simple. Joe has been married 5 times. Some unions brief, others longer, all shaped by the whirlwind of a rock and roll lifestyle that left little room for stillness. But perhaps no relationship left a deeper scar or a more enduring memory than the one with his daughter, Emma Kristen. She was just shy of 3 years old, a sweet child with wide eyes and a bright spirit. In April 1974, Emma was killed in a tragic car accident on her way to preschool. There are some wounds that never close. Joe didn't talk much after that. Instead, he wrote, and from that raw, bleeding space came Song for Emma, a haunting tribute that closes his 1974 solo album, So What? The pain didn't just color the song, it birthed it. The title itself, So What, was born from grief. Because after losing Emma, nothing else seemed to matter. Not fame, not money, not even music. To honor her memory, he built a fountain and plaque in North Boulder Park, where she once played. A small place. Quiet. Just like she was. Years later, Joe brought Stevie Nicks, his partner at the time, to that fountain. Moved by what she saw, she wrote, "Has anyone ever written anything for you?" It was her tribute to Emma, to Joe, to a kind of love that never really ends, even when it breaks. Stevie once said Joe was the love of her life, but love, for both of them, was tangled in the haze of cocaine and touring. Eventually, Joe made the hardest decision. He left, because if he stayed, one of them would not survive. And in doing so, he might have saved them both. But Joe didn't just walk away from a relationship. He began to walk away from addiction itself. Years of alcohol and drug use had pushed him to the edge. Missed flights, lost days, faded memories. Then, in 1991, he woke up in Paris with no recollection of how he got there. Passport in hand, soul in limbo, and in that surreal clarity, he saw it. He had to change or die. That same year, a trip to New Zealand's Otatara Pa, a sacred Maori site, gave him what he described as a spiritual awakening. In the ancient quiet of that land, he found something music hadn't given him in years: peace. From that moment on, Joe committed to recovery. He's been sober since 1993, and he wears that sobriety like a badge of hard-earned honor. It's not loud. It's not performative. It's just true. Today, Joe Walsh is a man rebuilt. He lives with Marjorie Bach, his fifth wife and the sister of Barbara Bach, who is married to Ringo Starr. They met later in life, when the storms had passed and the quiet finally felt safe. Together they've built something rare, a home not just of walls, but of calm. Joe spends his days reading, walking, playing guitar not for albums, but for air. He's not chasing shows or headlines. He's chasing mornings that smell of coffee and grass, evenings where the only applause is the wind in the trees. He still writes, still listens to music, still laughs that low, mischievous laugh, but there's a different kind of rhythm now, one that has nothing to do with charts or set lists, one that sounds more like a heartbeat that's finally steady. He once sang, "I can't complain, but sometimes I still do." But these days, Joe Walsh rarely complains, because he knows what it means to lose, to fall, to rebuild, and to finally find peace, not in applause, but in the stillness he once ran from. If this story moved you, if Joe Walsh's journey from chaos to calm reminded you that healing is always possible, then don't let it end here. Like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can discover that sometimes the wildest souls find the deepest peace. Not on stage, but under the quiet sky of a California ranch.